These men, these abuser men, and grooming and manipulation. Okay, so I actually was reading a bunch of comments, and these people cannot get this story. And I have a suspicion of what happened here. Okay, so the father of Monterey Park teen missing for a week, arrested on suspicion of child abduction. Okay, so these men, okay. I was like, these men mostly, we just won't go there. Want to control women up the yin yang, okay? And I guess she was under parental control, this guy, Jeffrey. I think it's Cho, if I'm saying it wrong. Sorry. I'm the name butcher. Um, so he reports that she went missing, right? So the father of a 15-year-old girl who went missing for about a week has been arrested on suspicion of child abduction and other offenses, the Monterey Park Police Department announced Friday. Jeffrey Cho also is accused of falsifying a police report in connection with the disappearance of Allison, which means that he had knowledge that she wasn't actually missing. Okay. The elder Cho was being held without bail, according to Jose Romero, his attorney, while declining further, to comment. Okay. Allison was reported missing July 16, but was found safe on Tuesday in a mystery that touched off requests for public assistance and searches organized by residents. The department's dedicated effort and collaboration with other agencies were pivotal in resolving the critical situation and ensuring Allison was safe. You know, okay, so we want the community of Monterey Park that the department remains steadfast in its commitment to the safety and well-being of residents. We appreciate your continued support in during this investigation. According to the family law attorney for the father, Hannah, Allison's mother has sole legal custody of her for mental health. Annie was granted physical custody on a temporary basis as of last week. So get this. Allison's mother has sole legal custody for her mental health. So now she was granted physical custody to take care of her that way. It's kind of strange, but I don't know, something like that. So Jeffrey spoke during a news conference on Tuesday when he thanked friends and the community for helping to find his daughter. The fake dude, right? So he could just go out in public and play this charade with us all, right? Isn't this like the thing that men constantly do? Yeah. Okay, the father's attorney said no foul play or kidnapping was suspected. Uh-huh. Um, we've been really worried about where she's been. We really appreciate what everyone's done and helped out with. Okie dokie. Allison disappeared after last week being seen around 6:20 p.m. The girl had left her father's house in Monterey Park that afternoon and was heading towards an aunt's home in San Gabriel, riding a blue mountain bike and carrying a black backpack, but she never arrived. According to police and relatives, she was spotted riding her bike on various neighborhood surveillance cameras. She was found Tuesday morning when a resident recognized her in Glendale area and called authorities. The teen's parents are in the middle of a divorce proceedings and a custody dispute. Okay? Keep this in mind. They're in the middle of their personal bullshit, which we all get caught up in, us as kids, and this is the worst thing ever. And sociopaths love to use their kids in the middle of this, right? Yeah. So you know which is the devil in this story. Jeffrey's attorney and Allison lived with her father, but her mother was recently granted temporary custody rights before the teenager's disappearance. So this is actually key. Before the teenager's disappearance. Now, details about Allison's disappearance remain unclear. The thing that I'm kind of getting from this, and since it's not really out here because this is a kid case, so they never really, it is possible that he was brainwashing her and just saying that she needs to stay away from her mom because her mom is evil. Like he started manipulating her in some way. So I think that has something to do with it. And he might have told her, you need to do this because something bad's going to happen to you. Something, you guys, something. Because the initial story was like she was trying to run away to be safe from her mother, right? So that's the manipulation. So that would be like the manipulative part of the father. And yes, he should have been arrested. And he was actually manipulating a little girl. So yeah, his ass should be in there forever and he should never have custody of a kid. So yeah, so for these proceedings, he doesn't want mom to have her, so he started using the kid in it. The kid, I don't know if she's has some other mental disabilities or something as to why the mom, that thing. But yes, so yeah, he's an abuser. This is the bad dad episode, and we have also child abuser Elon Musk, because I already tackled him elsewhere, but let's talk about this dude. He is a child abuser through and through. Okay. And his daughter is now he has this problem because his son became a transgender female, identifies as female, and he continually verbally abuses her. And he's so upset that he no longer has a son, because that's what the white subs want. They want their sons, right? You got to carry my name. Now, this wouldn't even be going on if we didn't lose our names to men to begin with, which is part of male supremacy. But anyway, and they're abusive, you know what? And I want to point out that all these men that are abusive to us, that we're not even their kids 1000% suffer mental health issues. That has been a chronic thing. And there was a news story that came out, and I was like, yeah, you know what? That thing right there doesn't surprise me, because these people are bullies and hate our gender and make up stuff and call us all crazy, and they go out here and cover up child sex crimes, and they degrade our gender continuously. And for their kids to suffer from mental health issues is literally no surprise. And that's why I really lean on everything is environmental versus genetic. The only genetic problem here is him being, isn't he autistic or something? He has like Asperger. I don't know. He's an ass. So let's go. In the exclusive interview, Vivian Wilson said her father's recent statements, including that she is not a girl, inspired her to speak out. And I'm not just going to let that slide. You should love her anyway. Like, no matter how anybody chooses to live their life, you should love your kids anyway, but the whole time he's degrading them. So, so imagine prior to them being an adult, the horrific thing of having Eli as your dad. Yes, they're going to have problems. They're definitely going to have problems. People have problems with him generally in the population, just working with him and how he goes at things. But yes, so there's some sense of sanity in this family, because I think on the mom side, because they're supportive of them as how they are, it kind of helps it not to turn into a situation like the mass shooters, right? This type of situation right here can turn very ugly. And so I've been looking at that. I'm like, isn't it interesting how you can come out of this thing with like the type of dad that would create like a serial killer, but in the dynamic, there's something that like curbs it, because in some of the stories, when you go into them, it's like both the parents are piles of shit, right? And then the child comes out, maybe not necessarily a mass shooter, but like a total serial rapist or some massive abuser and this and that. And it doesn't mean it won't happen here, like somebody won't have some abusive behaviors, but yeah, but there is something in this story where it's like there is this thing to lean back on, that somebody is supportive, and so therefore it doesn't cause this thing like I hate this other thing going on. So anyway, that was this thing. So Wilson 20, in an exclusive interview with NBC News, responded to comments Musk made Monday about her and her transgender identity. Oh, let me stop here again. So also when I'm pointing out the conduct, regardless if they're transgender, gay, or whatever, their upbringing, initially as a male, is what is important in this entire conversation of things, because of the actions later, and they're not being accused of doing any sex crimes or anything like that. So, but when I'm looking at these other cases where, transgender's involved, like the Mr. B story over there, it has to do with their upbringing as initially as a male or something. Then it has anything to do with them turning transgender, or, I feel like I'm a female, any of that stuff. That's kind of the, after the fact thing. We're talking about that early childhood portion. And so, yeah, that's where it matters. Because they're raised differently. They've chronically been raised differently, and the mentality from that is very different from a female. And not to say that some females weren't raised that same way, because I think maybe some of the dynamics is that the some of the girls are being raised like little boys as well, because they had a thing of trying to degender us. There was that going on, de-sex us, which they tried to gender neutralize females. So it's funny that they kind of they're total hypocrites, the Christians, because what they were trying to do basically was de-sex and de-gender women. And then, yeah, so it actually, there's an addition to this stuff where you got to start questioning like a lot of other things, because that is in the mix as well. Okay. On social media and an interview posted online, Musk said that she was not a girl and was figuratively dead. What a horrible. Angelina Jolie's dad is just as bad. Like, I cannot. I was just like, I probably would come out like doing a lot of drugs, you know? That guy, because in the addition, he's also extra religious. And so it's like, no. Yeah, and he chronically abuses his daughter. Like, they're old now, right? Like, he's way ancient, and he still abuses his daughter. Like, he still does. And these men think, oh, I'm a totally perfectly moral and great dad. And it's you that's the problem, girl. It's like this thing. And I was like, I can't deal with it, man. That shit's like that. But he's like the type of guy that would have hung out with my dad. Like, totally. Every time he talks, I'm like, ugh. But my dad was minus that religious shit, so I don't know, he's more of a Zodiac killer type. Okay, and he alleged that he had been tricked into authorizing trans-related medical treatment for her when she was 16. Wilson said that Musk hadn't been tricked, and that after initially having hesitated, he knew what he was doing when he agreed to her treatment, which required consent from her parents. Yeah, so I mean, if there's a problem, then the parents are at fault, right? Because you consented to do something to your child it's under 18. So Musk's recent statements crossed a line, she said. I think he was under the assumption that I wasn't going to say anything and that I would just let this go unchallenged. Wilson said in a phone interview, which I'm not going to do, because if you're going to lie about me, like blatantly to an audience of millions, I'm not just going to let that slide. Put yourself in this situation. This is like, they continually come out here and abuse their kids, and they go into the media, and it's totally different than me at home and my dad, because it's not even being blasted. It's not blasted to the public. It's like they come out here, they're like, I'm a good dad, and my kids are piles of shit. And, and I'm going to repaint the story the way that I want to. And then the kids are like suffering. They're off doing drug deals, like this whole other thing that's going on. And then, some of them turn into bullies. Some of them, a number of things that have been going on. So, yeah, I mean, when I'm looking at them now, it's not, because they're celebrities. It's like, I know they're all crap, so it doesn't, like, whatever. But I'm looking at the family dynamic, because the parents are such abusers. And I know what happened when we were kids, and there was a bunch of kids that took off from home too, and I go, but they didn't look at the kids as being victims. They didn't look at the kids as being victims to adults. And I go, because when I was looking at one of the cases here, I go, one of the girls that was hanging out with me, I go, oh no, they lied. They said shit to me. They made up a story, and, they wanted to take off from their family. Like, there's a whole other thing. And I go, nobody kidnapped them, technically, and nobody did these things. But there was a home life issue, and which that should have been looked at as though, why would they do these things, right? You're looking at it in this whole thing. And so they want to get away from something. And it's like, why do they want to get away from something? This whole other thing. I never even had a thought to run away. I mean, surprisingly, and I would have had the reason to. But no, and there was a lot of kids out here. And so a lot of the other kids out here, when it was going on, was because the Christians were abusing their children that were LGBTQ, just like this. And so they would run away, and then, or they got kicked out, because Eli sounds also like the type to like throw you out of the house. This is not allowed in my house. You can't be like that because God said it's evil. And so you get a number of things out of this. You either get kids that are running away, or they turn into serial killers, or, this. So we're talking about the gay monsters, and I'm saying that. Obviously, somebody got verbally abused so much that being gay was such a horrible thing, and it was totally internalized, and they start acting out in that way. Then it gets worse when it's your own parents trying to sexually molest you, and then you have some additional things in this. And I go, yeah, I mean, the whole time they didn't even care that parents were raping their kids, and the kids wanted to get away from it, and they took off. I mean, that's pretty sane. Because why would you want to stay in a home that your parents are touching you all the time, So so they didn't even care. So what they would do is they would like arrest the kids and drag them back to their parents and say, these are just bratty little kids that are evil, that do not want to sit there and mind their parents and pray to God. Honest to God, that is exactly what was going on. I go, the rest of the world is not part of the Duggar, that whole thing over there. So when they were speaking about them, I was having an issue, because I go, it's not just them. Like, I go, that was the rest of America. Because they don't know. That's the thing. They don't know, because they're coming outside of a cult among all these other people that are talking, I was in a cult. And I go, well, that's nice. But the rest of the world was also in a cult. And they were also doing these things. And that's what we had to fight against. And so, but it's hard for them to know, because they didn't live out here. You know what I mean? They didn't go through that thing. They didn't go through the system of how they were doing things. And I was like, yeah, so they get out of that stuff, and then they get thrust out here, but it's like some disconnect. I go, they weren't teaching anything different. So they go, I think he was under the assumption that she wasn't going to tell. Okay, so Wilson said that for as long as she could remember, Musk hasn't been a supportive father. She said that he was rarely present in her life, leaving her and her siblings to be cared for by their mother or by nannies. And even though Musk had joint custody, and she said Musk berated her when he was present. He sounds just like my evil grandma, though. It's like every time she come around, it's like they have to start verbally abusing you. You're fat. You're this. You can't do this. Why can't you do this? You're never good enough. Blah, blah. Like, you could never hear like something positive. Now, she would always say something positive to the male. Now, it's interesting that Musk does this, before you transitioned, if he was doing that the whole time. Because if you notice, most of these kids, male or female, do not have good relationships with their fathers, because men are generally abusive. And that's what we've been looking at, because in general society, they've been pro-rapist, they've been verbally abusive, they have no connection to other humans. Their goal is money, greed, and power. And that's why we all get raped, and that's why kids get harmed, and they have emotional problems, and they get mental illness. So yes, that's exactly it. And then because they abuse women, and he's abusing women here as well, because you identify as transgender, he has a very low opinion about females. And so this is like the worst possible thing ever. So you're not the ideal human that he wants, which is a son, okay? Because that's the most important thing for men to have, because that's what they identify as their own identity, to carry on their bullshit for the... Because if you look at the whole thing, it's like we drop our name for men, and we're supposed to submit to men, and we're only supposed to care about their careers, and women are just garbage, and we just need to go cook for them and have their babies and all this stuff, like this mentality that's been going on. And so they have a very low opinion of you anyway, and so that just makes it worse. It's more like that thing. And then but he has a problem, so it isn't you. And then they said he's very quick to anger, and he's an uncaring and narcissistic. Well, I would call him a sociopath. And I go, the father, if you look at your grandfather, he's very abusive. And so he has no connection to any human. So obviously when he was born, some very terrible child abuse happened there. And Elon wants to show off like with his guns too, like he's some like strong manly man or something. And then he's off calling everybody else a pedophile, but yet he's like one of the worst child abusers out here going on like this. And he doesn't have any care for other human beings at all. And which means he's a harm to self and others. And he will use his kids as weapons for anything. I pointed this out too. I go, Diddy did it. I can name a ton of men that have been doing this, and I'm just grossed out. I don't know if it's such a common thing for women to do as much, but they probably have. I just catch it more with men, mostly men that are so verbally abusive to women, and out of nowhere they'll go, oh, look, I have a daughter. And like totally, like somehow it means they love girls. Somehow it means all these things, and it absolutely doesn't. And as you see here, he does not love females at all. So Wilson said that when she was a child, Musk would harass her for exhibiting feminine traits and pressure her to appear more masculine. See, now, if it was from nature, you wouldn't have to sit there and tell anybody to act a certain way at all. I mean, these traits, right? And the traits are fake. Like the traits are fake. And this includes with females too, by the way. The traits are fake. Nobody runs around all hee. Yeah, okay, so these traits are fake. These traits are indoctrinated into children very young. It's environmental. And my biggest argument on this stuff. So women act in a way that is not authentic, and men act in a way that is not authentic. So everybody does, okay? So I've always questioned this thing, like, why are you identifying with certain things? Because technically it's all a made up concept, right? So this is going into the deeper thing of this stuff, but yeah, so he's trying to get you to act more quote unquote masculine, but what the hell is that? And who made that up? And why would things be considered masculine anyway when they technically have no anything to them, right? And same with female stuff, like colors. I mean, they're just colors. I mean, no one said that's a girl or boy. They just slap it onto a gender. So it's a made up concept. Dresses are a made up concept. Long hair, short hair, all that stuff is made up concept. Playing football is a made up concept. I mean, it's pretty violent, but females could do it too, but somehow it's like slapped onto you. This is what men do. This is what makes you a man. It's like that. No, God didn't do that. And like nobody did this, right? Pushing her to deepen her voice. Okay, so she's born with a certain voice, okay? You know, and these fake God people that are like, God gave you this. Okay, well, God gave this person a very high-pitched voice. Now, I've heard tons of men that think there's these masculine, manly men, and they have the highest pitched voice ever, and it's the funniest shit ever. Because it doesn't match, right? It's like this, the made-up concept thing doesn't look right together. It's just awkward, right? It just doesn't, the whole thing is like, but that's how they sound. That's just how they're born. And some women have deeper voices than men, and then they start calling them men, but it's like, that's just part of nature. Like some people do, some people don't. And it doesn't have anything to do with your sexuality. Okay, so as early as elementary school. So, so you have to force deep in your voice. No wonder these guys sound totally ridiculous. I laugh at it. Some of these guys, like, you could tell, like, they're purposely doing that. And it's like, oh, man. Pathetic. But yeah, they're doing it because I guess because the father probably at an early age had him do this. Michael Jackson, I guess you could look at it. He did a whole opposite thing. You know, guys, this thing and that thing. It's fake, right? Because then in the background, he's like, yeah, this shit. And you're like, what the fuck? Yeah. So, yes, people can fake present. That shit is abnormal, you guys. That's very abnormal. It's mentally ill. It is psychotic. And it's not authentic. And these people are fake. So, for you to be as your normal self is what, you're born with. That whatever you're just exhibiting who you are, and you might be exhibiting what's in the environment, and you just feel more, on that side of things. What's really authentic, it's just like really, if you start going in there. Okay, I was in fourth grade. We went on this road trip that I didn't know was exactly just an advertisement for one of the cars. I don't remember which one. And he was constantly yelling at me viciously because my voice was too high. It was cruel. That's insanity. He's a child abuser. Child abuser. Mustn't respond to a request for comment. When does he shut his mouth? Come on. Wilson and her twin brother were born to Musk's first wife, author Justin Musk. The couple's divorced in 2008, and Wilson said her parents shared custody between their homes in LA area. Musk, 53, who's a Gen X, swine, which I've talked about. The Generation X is really bad. They were bullies in school to us, and that would never change. Okay, so and they just became worse, and they control women making money. They are all things bad. Okay, so I'm sorry for anybody having a Gen X parent. Okay, for the most part, is among the wealthiest people in the world through his stakes in Tesla, where he's CEO, and SpaceX, which he founded. He has also become a significant political figure, having endorsed former President rapist Trump, and for this month, for another term in the White House. Musk has 12 children, including Wilson. I mean, should this even be allowed? These men get to go and just knock up all these women, degrade them, and make us live in poverty while they're taking over the planet. This is bullshit. And abusing their children. And that's why we have this massive problem with guns and everything else, because that's considered masculine. Okay, yeah, there's all this going on. Now a college student studying languages, Wilson has never granted an interview before and has largely stayed out of the public view. She did, however, attract attention in 22 when she sought court approval in California to change her name in the process, denouncing her father, which I just think is wonderful. I honest to God think that all of us females, or whoever, to drop the father's name and stop that shit. Because first of all, men shouldn't be sitting there looking at like they're the lineage, this whole thing about it, and how they made us like they try to erase us from history, and they continually like erase our names. And I pointed this out multiple times. And even on the birth certificate, like it didn't care about the career of the mom. It's like it put my dad's career and it didn't even give a shit what like my mom did. And then it drops my name, gives me some other guy's last name who's not even their real dad. I don't even get it. But anyway, it does this thing. And it's like, oh, we're supposed to be erased from the planet. And we're supposed to carry on the father's name. So there's an entitlement issue as well in that conduct right there. So bravo to you, because you made a stance for that. But also, I think it was Angelina Jolie's kid did this too. And I go, yes, you know what? All of us should have probably done that. Yeah. I think it would have been a different story if everybody just kept the connected last names, and then some of the issues might, just the connected last names, it would make sense. And it wouldn't be so bad and entitled versus women are supposed to drop their last name and take the man's last name. And that's why they want the sons, because it carries on their last name. Whereas for women, if we get erased and we don't matter. Yeah, I mean, there is a definite thing about it. So erasing the father out of the picture is wonderful. It's a deeper, part of this whole thing and their entitlement issues. I no longer live with or wish to be related to my biological father in any way, shape, or form. She told NBC News that at the time she was surprised by the media attention to the court filing, which she submitted when she was 18. She said in the interview that she stands by what she wrote, though she said that she might have tried to be more eloquent had she known the coverage it would get. I mean, they're going into court to prove their case. Like, the reason why I'm changing my name is like this and that, which I need to do. I don't even know how to go through the process, but I've been needing to do that for a long time. And why, this whole thing. Wilson said that she hadn't spoken to Musk in about 4 years and that she refused to be defined by him. I would like to emphasize one thing. I'm an adult. I am 20 years old. I'm not a child. My life should be defined by my own choices. Yeah, and Musk threw a spotlight on Wilson on Monday by speaking about the relationship in a video interview with psychologist and conservative commentator Jordan. streamed live on X, saying he didn't support Wilson's gender identity. I lost my son, essentially, Musk said. He used Wilson's birth name, also known as a dead name for transgender people, and said she was dead, killed by the woke mind virus. And in a post on X, Musk said Monday that Wilson was born gay and slightly autistic. And in a post on X, Musk said Monday that Wilson was born gay and slightly autistic. I'm glad you pointed this out, because as we're looking at sociopaths, this correlation here, when they're calling them psychopaths. Now, this is not, I don't believe this happened in this story because they sound sane and together. But as an example, okay, the father here, Musk, has problems, right? He's an abusive, narcissist, sociopath, blah, blah, blah. Is abusive. And in the mix of this, the son, well, that was born initially, may have been autistic as well. Musk keeps abusing that child. And what has been coming out of this unit, typically, in a lot of these cases, is then they turn into serial killers. There's a lot more into it to turn them into a serial killer, because I don't see it in this case, but the home dynamic where it's like everybody, and there's a whole thing into it. So they have support somewhere. So they start turning into a serial killer, and then they start multiple cases of this. So then we're pulling them out, and I go, that person I could tell is like on the spectrum. And they start calling them psychopaths. And I go, I think that's the only different thing in it. And they're smart too, right? So just because you're autistic doesn't mean you're not a brilliant person. But and that thing right there, because you have somebody who's intelligent but also highly abused, and then they turn into a serial killer or a just a mass murderer, whatever, with this thing. I was saying that it's not genetic. The only genetic component in it is being autistic, but being autistic isn't the thing that caused the other thing. What would cause the other thing is shit like this. And that's what I was pointing out. I go, thankfully, otherwise they would be on the nightly news. And this didn't happen here, but this is what I'm talking about. You have shitty ass dad, and if they had shitty ass, they could have had shitty ass dumb mom that enabled it. And then the kid's like totally ostracized. Like there's this thing to it. And then, obviously there's some additionals in this. I'm not really sure all the additionals. It's kind of like, it's like a crapshoot because you don't know where it's going to go. Like they're either going to run away and they're, they develop properly where they're sane and sound and, they want to get rid of their nasty parents. Or you get a situation where, they're just like F the world and they just start, going out and being homicidal. But this is what I'm talking about. And I go, I don't want to call them psychopaths because it would be in a family unit like this. In fact, it would be something like this. It's like the something like that. Yeah, and so it's awful. I go, they had been abusing autistic kids the entire time. They didn't identify autism back when. It was only been in the recent, 2 decades, right? I mean, really talking about it. So, no. So this was bothersome reading that. And I go, oh, well, thankfully. Okay, so, and that at age 4, she fits certain gay stereotypes, such as loving musicals and using the exclamation fabulous. Maybe because women generally, we're just fun. There's a thing to this. They're happy. Okay, for women, okay, again, this is all a made up concept, but for us, it's okay to be free and happy and express yourself in that way, even though the Christians really hate it, because you weren't supposed to dance or do any of this thing. For men, they're like, that's not manly. Don't like that. Don't call my dolls. It's so stupid. I got all these G.I. Joe. They're action figures. They're not dolls. They're action figures. Because for men, they're action figures. They're not my dolls. Yeah, okay, so they started in with this bullshit. It's environmental, you guys. So they raise boys differently than females typically. So then you start having all these problems, regardless if they're gay, LGBT, in anything, you guys. So it has to do with this thing right here, and 1,000%. It's fucking environmental. It's from an abusive father, an abusive mother. Yeah, so there's mothers that fully believe in this type of upbringing right here. So when the mom's doing it, she's becoming the abuser, and then males have an issue with females. There's a whole thing to this, but this is the worst dynamic ever. But I'm glad it's starting to. I'm glad that they're aware, and so I have this thing about it too that at the time they were not aware of these dynamics. It's like something that's happening. It's like a canker sore, and you're like, I just can't get rid of it. That we're looking at it, and now that if a kid can identify, oh, it's not me, it's them, and that the dynamic here is unhealthy, and I should go seek out something more, healthy for myself, that it's okay. Like, it wasn't a topic, so I think a lot of kids suffered in private, but a lot of these things can be very permanent. And I mean, that's what we're going through. I go, that's what it says. That's what the professionals say, dude. But I don't exactly agree with the professionals on perspectives on a lot of these things. But generally, I mean, that is regardless of any names of anything that they want to talk about. It is permanent. It can be permanent. Wilson also addressed Musk's recent comment in a series of posts Thursday on social media app Threads. He doesn't know what I was like as a child because he was quite simply wasn't there. She wrote, and in the little time that was, I was relentlessly harassed for my femininity and queerness. Yeah, so being a woman is the worst horrible thing to Elon, and he can kiss my ass, okay? So these men have a problem with women generally. That's what they're saying. I mean, it's just flat out what they're saying. It's horrible to be a woman. No, it's horrible to be a man. I'll say that. It's really horrible. I would not want to be a man. Because they hate themselves so much, and they take their shit out on our gender. And then our gender is a hot mess, okay? So it's not this thing. So I've been reduced to a happy little stereotype, she continued. I think that says a lot about how he views queer people and children in general. No, actually, it's telling you how he views women. Why would they have an issue of you being female? Why is he getting 12 kids from a million women? Doing these things. His perspective is about male supremacy and his viewpoint about women. That's how come they go after LGBTQ. Technically about you, it's about our gender. Because if he actually respected our gender, it wouldn't matter. In recent years, Musk has taken a hard right turn into conservative politics and has been waging a campaign against transgender people and policies designed to support them. This month, he said he was pulling his business out of California to protest a new state law that bars schools from requiring that trans kids be out to their parents. On X, Musk has for years criticized transgender rights, including medical treatments for trans-identifying minors, and use of pronouns if they are different from what would be used at birth. Oh, this is why they were also outing artists' real names. Like, it's an evil thing to do. It's the same concept, and I was saying Facebook was doing it, and guess who Facebook is? All these guys. So they were outing artist names. It's like, we know Madonna, right? Does anybody go and call her by her fucking birth name? Like, everybody knows it, but why would you call her that? It's just like Marilyn Manson, like, they want to do the Brian thing, but they're doing it to be a dick. I mean, let's just be real. Or any other artist, right? It's like, that's how we know them. They want to be called that. So why are we going to run out here and call them that? Unless it's a legal document, right? Like the legal paperwork. But you could even be called that on legal paperwork. Yeah, so anyway, they were trying to do that to me, and they don't know if I'm sitting there identifying. They don't know anything, right? I could be identifying as a male, and then they started doing that to me. So I was like, then the next thing is, my story doesn't make it to the media, right? That they did this bullshit. But the next one was a transgender story where they were using a name, and they wanted to out their names, right? And I go, again, this shit right here is by these men. they're the ones that have the problem with females. It is not the other way around. They have fucking problems with women, and they want to put this shit into our society and abuse children. And that's why their children ran away and they died. They're just abusers. They're child abusers. And he should have been arrested for child abuse. Like, but she said he wasn't around. But anytime that he's around, well, the fact that your parents would even allow this kind of crap, that should be a major problem. Like CPS should have came in here, and Musk shouldn't be around kids. Just generally, he's a child abuser, through and through. That's child abuse. So, oh my goodness. After Musk bought X, oh, which by the way, he's not for free speech because the perma ban over here. Yeah, he's full of shit. Only for himself, so you can sit there and trash everybody, you know what I mean? So he's like, I gotta come up in here and trash everybody. I'm never gonna let this girl come up in here because I'm out here on a mission to destroy the woke virus. What does that mean, you guys? Oh, I'm here to destroy humans, other human lives. I'm here to destroy other human lives. Yeah, that's you. That's you, the child abuser, Musk. He rolled back the app's protection for trans people, including a ban on using dead names. Musk told Peterson that Wilson's gender transition has been the motivation for his push into conservative politics. I vowed to destroy the woke mind virus after that, and we're making some progress. Yeah, by muting speech, censorship, still banning people you hate. Being a child abuser, let's keep this up. Being a child abuser, being a child abuser, being a child abuser. And a terrible father. You're a terrible father just because you populate with a bunch of women that you have no respect for. You're a terrible father. I question these women that are with a man like this, but, again, is there anybody that's not like this? Too much. But Wilson was also mentioned in a biography of Musk by author Walter. A book that she told NBC News was inaccurate and unfair to her. The book refers to her politics as radical Marxism, quoting Musk's sister-in-law, Christiana Musk, but Wilson said she's not a Marxist, though she said she does oppose wealth inequality. Thank you. She's sane. The book also calls her by middle name Jenna. Wilson said Isaacson never reached out to her directly ahead of a publication. In a phone interview Thursday, Isaacson said he had reached out to Wilson through family members. Christiana Musk didn't immediately respond to requests for comment Thursday. Wilson told NBC News that for years she had considered speaking out about Musk's behavior as a parent and as a person, but that she could no longer remain silent after comments Monday. She said that she has never received an explanation for why her father spent so little time with her and her siblings. Behavior that she now views as strange. Okay, she don't even want to spend time with the mom, right? So you're talking about his idea of the world is to populate it. That's all we're here for. That's all women are here for, okay? Is for these white men to populate the planet, take all the money, put us underneath them, take all the power and control, rape us to death, and that's it. Like, they don't need to be home. They don't, because they're like they're trying to say that they're the money makers, and that's it. And so their whole job is just to populate 1 million women. The definition of the white man in America, and that's what they all fucking try to, go after, and they want human trafficking rings. But basically that. So he was there, I want to say, maybe 10% of the time. That's generous. He had half custody and he was fully not there. Yeah, it's a choice. Because what's important to him is his name, his money, and power. Not kids. The only thing that you're good for is passing along his name and genes. That's it. It was just a fact of life at the time, so I didn't think I just realized just how abnormal of an experience it was. Again, I pulled this out saying that child abuse, like, it almost seems normal. Like, you just think, oh, isn't this how everybody is? And then at some point you realize, like, it's abnormal. There is that thing. Like, people know that you're stealing at a store. Like, you do learn that. But here, if you didn't know that you were doing something wrong, stealing at a store, you wouldn't try to hide something. You would actually just walk in and then take it and then just have it in your hand and walk out. beyond these like robbers that are doing this crap today, but I'm just talking about like generally, like you would walk in and take it and think, oh, I don't know how the store works and this is normal. And you would just walk out of the store with it in your hand without hiding something. So here, this is something that's showing, I think it's normal. Like, I just thought, this is just it. No, he's a bad dad, child abuser. Wilson said she came out twice in her life, once as gay in 8th grade. Ah. So I said they are actually going through their sexuality from birth till you're going to start seeing this stuff before the age of 10. And they will, if we sat there and got into a deeper conversation, they might sit there and go, oh yeah, that they were kind of saying like I had shown exhibited behaviors early on. And so that's pre 8th grade, because 8th grade's around the 12-year-old, 13-year-old age or so. And I was saying, yeah, this is also the age where the sociopath also is like too late and it pops out. So all these things are coming together right here. And I go, oh yeah, it's before that age. It's before 8th grade. Because my friends in 8th grade were going on with their, with their bullshit here. So I already know that much. And it was already long, they already know, right? You're already developing. So I had already had my attraction to males when I was very young, like maybe 6, I don't know, somewhere around there. And very young, very young. So it just developed, continually more to develop from that point. And so it wouldn't be any different here. Once in 8th grade, and the second time as transgender when she was 16. She said that she doesn't recall Musk's response to the first time, and that she wasn't present when Musk heard from others that she was transgender, because by then the pandemic had started and she was living full time with her mother. She was very supportive. I love her a lot. So this is the good portion in the story, because if you could sit and contemplate this where the mom is not supportive, this is where hell starts to happen. And so this is a very positive part of the story, and why it doesn't go south, like even more south. So they do have that, because men are abusive pieces of shit. The pandemic was a chance to escape Musk's cruelty. When COVID hit, I was like, can Musk go outside? I don't know. Wait, I'm not going over there. It was basically very lucky timing. Musk told Peterson in the interview that he had been tricked into signing documents authorizing transgender-related medical treatment for Wilson. Okay, so he's trying to paint himself as a victim. This is another portion of the narcissist where they're like, I'm the victim. I'm totally the victim, and you're not the freaking victim. But he's trying to paint that out like, I had no idea. He runs this big company, okay? I had no idea on this paperwork. I'm just dumb right here. Okay, so an allegation Wilson said isn't true, and you're credible, and he's not. I was essentially tricked into signing documents for one of my older boys. He just made up a story. He just like literally made up a story. And Musk said using her birth name. That was before I had really any understanding of what was going on. And we had COVID going on, he said, adding that he was told she might commit suicide. Wilson said that in 2020. Oh, did you guys see that ridiculous thing that he put out? And he's like, the problem with Elon is that he loves too much. And I'm like, I was like, well, who smoked that crack and put that fucking out here? Yeah, so he's full of shit. He doesn't even stand by and support women when they're getting abused by other men. Yeah, that was something else to pay attention to. When she's still a minor at 16, she wanted to start treatment for severe gender dysphoria, but needed the consent of both parents under California law. So she said that her mother was supportive, but that Musk initially wasn't. And she said she texted him about it for a while. I was trying to do this for a month. But he said I had to go meet with him in person. And at that point, it was very clear that we both had a very distinctive disdain for each other. Because you're a female. Me and Elon are never going to get along because he doesn't like women. These are the men I don't get along with because they don't like women. They look down on our gender. So they're going to look down. I can tell you right now, the man that looks down on my gender is going to treat LGBTQ like shit. When she eventually went and gave him the medical forms, she said he read them at least twice, once with her and then again on his own before he signed them. He was not by any means tricked and he knew the full side effects. She said she took puberty blockers before she switched to hormone replacement therapy treatments and said she said were life-saving for her and other transgender people. They save lives. Let's not get that twisted. They definitely allow me to thrive. See, I can't even speak on these topics because I never had anything like that and I've never needed anything like that. And who am I to tell somebody they shouldn't do that? I mean, it's really that thing. I know there's this thing about consent laws and consent with all these things. However, it's a very different from being raped and having an adult rape kids where they can't make those decisions. But here it wasn't them making the decision on their own. It's like with parents. But yeah, regardless, I still think it's a bit of a different topic because it's not quite the same thing. It's not somebody doing something physically to them as it is. I don't know. But that's just how I view it. It's like I really have no room to talk shit about nothing. And neither does Eli. Because he's not going through that. Though I think inside he's a little tiny man that wants to be a woman. And, you know, deep down, he's just fighting it. He's really fighting it. That he really loves men. Because he certainly hates women. I think in his mind that women are only here to populate. And he really loves men. Because that's who he loves to side with and rub up on. So I honestly think Eli is in the closet. And he should just come out and say how much you hate women. She says she believed the requirements to obtain such treatments remain onerous, with teenagers pressured to say they're at extreme risk of self-harm before they are approved. She said she felt judged by Musk and Peterson in the Monday interview for not being a high enough risk in their eyes. I have been basically put into a point where to a group of people, I have to basically prove whether or not I was suicidal or not to warrant medically transitioning. It's absolutely mind-boggling. Yeah. If you were on any level suicidal, it would be because you have an abusive father. I mean, it would literally be, they don't even care about that though. It's like, you know, is my father a pile of shit? Is my mom a pile of shit? Are these parents really able to parent me? And should I be removed from this household? Yeah, there are cases that you should be removed from your household versus this bullshit right here, right? It's like, are you a suicidal enough kid? Oh, we're going to wait till you're totally mentally ill from your parents. And then we'll think about allowing you to do shit. But we're going to let you still stay in that absolutely disgusting abusive home. Now, as I said, Musk wasn't really there much, so yeah, there's things that are not in this family unit that would cause a serial killer. Because they're not there 24/7 where you can't escape the abusive father. They have a support system on one side of the parent. And so yeah, there's a thing here that balances out in some way. It doesn't mean that this child here is not going to have emotional issues. They're not a child now, but that the young adult is not going to have issues, and that they don't have issues now and that they won't have issues later. Like they could be depressed, they can have all these other things. So that's what I'm looking at. I mean, everybody should be looking at that because that's the thing right there. That's the formulation. I mean, it really is. It really is. And that's why you don't see many females go and shoot up a school. And if you do see a female shooting up a school, the dynamic at home would have to do with some combination that we're talking about here, and that they're identifying with the sociopath male. That's why I was like, they're not identifying with me. They're identifying with Ted Bundy. They're identifying with other male shooters, and they're identifying as a man. So what is it that they're identifying with? I'm talking about this one particular case that I was like, oh man, what is that? Because it's a little abnormal, right? So you don't want to see that, and it can happen. And But then you do have these other cases where it's not that they're mass shooters. They are sociopath killers. Just generally, like they'll kill women, they'll kill other men, they'll do these things, and you go into their home life, and it will have these dynamics. It will. It's laid out in front of our faces. It's like, why is this even going on? I go, it's so hard. If I tried to call CPS on Musk, they would literally let him do whatever and abuse the kid. They would. I go, CPS needs to get on it. I was like, but he's a child abuser. That's just it. He's a child abuser. So we just call Elon the child abuser. He hates women and he's a child abuser. Because being feminine is the worst thing you could ever be. In this world, they make it that way. That's not anything of my doing. But I love how men want to sit there and blame us for their fucking abuse. I love it. Oh, and I love the degrading us. Like, oh, we must be losers and don't have jobs if you don't have a home. I'm like, wow. Even when I was a child, I was child labor trafficked. I mean, let's talk about the job, that PBS, that bullshit, and raped up in there. I even had a job during that bullshit where the rest of y'all didn't and lived off my money as a little kid. At no time am I some loser with no fucking job. So they don't like my job. That's a different story. So why don't you put it out there properly, you white pieces of crap men? The rich guys, yeah, they have an opinion. They like to have an opinion. They like to hear themselves speak, but they never speak the truth. And then they degrade us on top of it because I'm a loser without a job. That's really nice. And then I had a female doctor do that. They're like, do you even have a job? I was like, okay, y'all got problems. And it's a rich white woman be going on like that with me. The reason why they do it, well, women are raised to degrade us, but men do it because they're mad that I'm not submitting to their dick and not doing anything under their control. And when you have a job that you don't need to be power controlled by another man, this is when they start degrading you because they're mad that you're not being controlled by the men and the man can't control you. But they found a way to control me. Elon has found a way to control me. There's all these men have found a way to control me and my income by owning the entire internet and trying to sit there and harm my income and sit here and play stupid that you don't know why people are on the street. You did it. That is your system. If you tell people not to pay us, you block people from paying us. Gee, I wonder how people are supposed to pay their shit out here. I don't know, man.